What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 4, the final episode for now, of We Got Next with Anthony Fava. I'm your host, Anthony Fava, and this is the show where we interview young Canadians in creative industries. And this week, we have an extra special guest. Just a quick intro for him. He's originally from Mississauga, Ontario, and he is a graduate of Toronto Metropolitan University's Radio and Television Arts program, along with studying production at UCLA and attending the ASC Masterclass in LA. His directorial debut came in 2021 with his short film Pink Rabbit, which was recognized and nominated at the BIFAN Film Festival in South Korea. On June 9th, him and the rest of his entertainment collective Grin premiered 3 of their short films, including the formerly mentioned Pink Rabbit, as well as Colored Emotions and The Whipping Boy, to a packed audience at the Royal Theatre in Toronto. He's not done there, though, as Grin is currently developing their next great short film. But today, for some reason, he's here talking with me. So please welcome to We Got Next, director and filmmaker Victor Oly.
Hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, man. That was a fun little intro.
Yeah, no problem. It's always nice to meet a fellow person that grew up in Mississauga. You know, there's not too many of us that I meet out there, but it's always nice to meet someone.
Yeah, man. I've been checking out your channel and everything and your movie reviews and stuff, and I'm very excited to talk and maybe dive into things not just about me, but just about movies in general.
Oh yeah, no, we can definitely dive into movies because I was for those watching, I also had another podcast called Film Time with Fava. Go check it out on the same channel that this one's on. So go check that out if you haven't already. But today we are here to talk to Victor about his career, tips he has for young aspiring filmmakers and directors. So let's get into that right now. And I wanted to start off just talking about what it was like for you growing up in Mississauga, and more specifically when you met your writer friend Ben Milligan, who you've worked with for years now at Cawthra Secondary School. Can you just touch on that upbringing and how meeting Ben and getting into the filmmaking?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like before Cawthra, I was kind of always into art, not necessarily movies in general, but I don't know, just loved putting on like plays with my sisters and stuff for my parents, just dressing up, acting as different characters. I think I loved the spotlight when I was younger, just making as many voices or funny faces as possible to make people laugh. And then, I went to the Queen Elizabeth School of the Arts for middle school. So that was just grade 7 and 8. And I don't really know how it works, but for some reason you get 1 or 2 less math and science classes and 1 or 2 more drama and arts classes. And so that's when I started to really like acting and mostly theater at that point. And then when it came to Cawthra, I have 2 older sisters and 1 younger sister, and actually all of us went to Cawthra through the drama major program there. So basically how Cawthra works is it's like 70% of the people there have to audition to get into an arts program, and then 30% are locals there who live nearby and can go to the school as well. And Ben and I were in different arts programs, but we met on the first day of school in gym class. So yeah, I remember, honestly, I do remember what Ben was wearing, and I just remember seeing him. He was wearing a Blink-182 t-shirt and skinny jeans, and he walked in. I was like, hey, that guy looks pretty cool. And we literally started talking that day, and from then on we've been best friends. And film kind of came a little bit later to us. When we first met each other, he was in the music program, I was in the drama program, and I had never picked up a camera in my life. He had never written a movie before. He'd written things in middle school and different, like maybe like poems, and had explored like short stories. But for some reason we started talking in grade 9, saying like we should make a movie together one day, even though we had no experience with that whatsoever. And we kept talking about it, and we never made anything. And we just kept talking about it. We're like, okay, well, when we make something, it'll be good. But I don't know where that confidence came from. And so we just kind of we're going through our own artistic experiences all throughout high school, um, talking about making something or just watching movies together and talking about film. And so we at least knew that we had the same taste in things. And so that was promising. And then it came to, I think, uh, yeah, the summer of first year university. And that's actually finally when we made something. But all throughout high school, it was really just us talking about stuff. Maybe we had written a couple scripts and like read them back and forth to each other. But really, it was just us building our friendship and kind of realizing how much we really related artistically. But for the longest time, we were just all talk and no execution at all.
Well, you kind of touched on first year university there, and I know you went to well, what was formerly known as Ryerson, now TMU. I just wanted you to touch on your time there and how that kind of maybe got the gears turning for the filmmaking, because you did mention that it kind of started not until first year.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna accidentally say Ryerson a bunch of times, I'm sure. But yeah, when I first went to TMU, I was coming from Cawthra, as I said, as a drama major. So honestly, when leaving high school, I wanted to go to theater school, but I was too afraid. Um, I wanted to try something where I could act, but also maybe have something else that I could fall back on. I didn't trust my acting skills quite enough to just take the leap. But my drama teacher at Cawthra really just encouraged me to follow in the arts and do something with it. He always told me that uh, when you do something in the arts, it really does span across a lot of different avenues as well, right? It gives you confidence, it gives you the ability to do public speaking, it gives you a lot of different tools. So I was like, okay, I can't do theater school because I'm too scared, but maybe I can do TMU's radio and television program. And I was like, I can go there and I can act in everybody's production. I'll just act in everyone's student film all the time, and that'll get my acting fix, and maybe I'll learn some other things as well. So yeah, when I started there, it was quite a small program. I think there was only like 180 of us. And I was acting in every single short that I could possibly. They were all just terrible scripts that were given to us from TMU, just like their stock script. Uh, like things about like a banana being a bomb. And it's literally called Banana Go Bango. Just absolutely terrible. um, but I started acting, and then I was taking a intro to single camera course. And right before I went to Ryerson, my nana actually got me like a Canon T4i or T3i or something for graduation of high school. And at that same time, so I was trying to learn that, and then we were learning how to do single camera production. And then I really realized how fun it was being behind the camera as well as in front of it. So we learned a few things during school, but it really came down to that following summer that I was kind of talking about, where it was the first time that I tried to make something by myself outside of school, outside of anything. And so that was a short film uh, and that's where I met Jack. So that's where I met Jack Copeland, who's in all of our shorts. And yeah, that first summer, we wanted to make a short film, and it was starring myself, and which I would never do again, by the way. I'd never act in my own productions. That's too hard. I don't know how all the greats do it, but I'm not good enough to do that. But yeah, it was starring myself and then someone from my high school, James Hawden. And then Ben and Jack had been friends back in, I think, elementary school. So, and Jack was at Western doing the IB program, but acting in all of the plays there. So we met and we started to film this short film about a kid that was on house arrest during the summer. And it was kind of about reconnecting with his friends or finding out like what was wrong with the friendships that he had kind of left behind. And we were filming and we were just shooting whenever we could, whenever everyone was available. Had no idea what scheduling was back then. Just everyone shows up in the backyard and let's do something. And So James, that never got finished because James had a huge mustache, and I think Jack touched on this, but
Yeah, yeah.
so James had this huge mustache, and um, then one day he just messages me and he just says he's ready to shoot on the weekend, but by the way, I had to go to my brother's wedding and I couldn't look like an idiot, so I shaved the mustache. Is that going to be a problem? And that was a problem. That ended the entire film. We had to go back to university like a week or two later, just had no time. And I just remember messaging Jack and being like, hey, dude, just letting you know it's over and nothing will come of this. And I didn't talk for Jack with Jack for a while after that. Not because of anything bad, just because he was at Western, I was at Ryerson. Um, but yeah, that first year at Ryerson really kind of set me off into wanting to make some things on my own. And it kind of only kept going from there.
It's actually funny you should talk about the mustache thing because a lot of people don't realize like the continuity and just how important that is in filmmaking. Because I even remember in my first year, I took a media production class, and one of my roommates that was in my like short film we made, he got like a pretty noticeable haircut between shooting dates. So yeah, like even then, like we still handed in the assignment, but like the teacher was like, "Oh, I noticed you got a haircut halfway through the film." So like, yeah, not a lot of people realize just how important it is to keep your actors and like the set looking the exact
I mean,
same.
that is why, like, on the big sets, that's someone's sole job, right? Is like you'll see the credits and it's just continuity. It's someone just watching and being like, hey, that glass was halfway full in the last scene, and now it's like there's one sip left. And it's like if you're cutting back and forth between that in a restaurant scene, maybe not everyone's going to notice, but some people are going to notice, and it's going to take you out of the film, right? So, I mean, that's nowhere near to close to someone having a mustache in one shot and no mustache in another. Um, but yeah, it is so pivotal, and I think that's something that, yeah, when you first start out, you're not really looking for. It's kind of something. It's already so overwhelming to make something as is that those minute details just go over everybody's head. But as you start getting used to it, you really start to get picky with those sorts of things for sure.
Yeah, no, and so after you were done at TMU, you went to UCLA to study there, and then you also attended the ASC master class. Both of those are in LA. What was that like? And what was that experience like getting to work in Los Angeles, pretty much like the mecca of entertainment?
Yeah, well, so the UCLA production course was actually through TMU. So I actually went in the summer between third and fourth year. At that time, it was called RT in LA. So what happened was we went for, I think, a 2 to 3 week like intensive production course. So basically, every day we would go to the UCLA campus, and we all lived there. There was, I think, about 20 of us, and every day someone from the industry would stop by, or multiple people, and they would just talk to us. So it was really just awesome because we would get to hear from writers, producers, directors, just all different kinds of people in the industry in LA. And they were kind of just giving us as many tips as they could as possible, and also just sharing their come up stories and how they ended up to get where they were. There was even some people that had like won Emmys that spoke to us, and it was just very, yeah, like it was just so educational to see and hear from people of all different kinds of jobs that are all living there and making it work. And so that was an amazing experience. And at the end of that, so we had 2 weeks of people talking with us, but at the same time, we were working on a TV show pitch that we got to actually pitch to like a panel of producers, of TV producers at the end of the 3 weeks. And that was another really interesting experience for me because uh, that was the first time that I had been given some like actually pretty hard but good constructive criticism. Um, and so in the moment, it was like a little bit of a blow, and gave me like some real things to think about. But now when I think back to it, it was just so helpful in helping me know what I need to do with my own work in the future when pitching. They just gave me some feedback. Basically, that was I had all these different ideas for the show about like how things would unravel, like all of these kind of more intellectual aspects to the show. And at the end of the pitch, they were like, it sounds very well thought out, but at the end of the day, people want emotion and people want to feel. And they were like, when you do a pitch like this, it's like, that's the number one. It's not all the minute little character details or like how one shot's going to connect to another. It's like, at the end of the day, what's the purpose of this and how is it going to make me feel? And that kind of was the biggest takeaway for me, was that like emotion first, and then all the other things can come after that. And then you mentioned the ASC masterclass, right? You want me to jump in on that one?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So yeah, that was a really cool experience, because basically what happened is there's a little bit of a string of events that get me there. So my parents have been putting their house on Set Scouter for a few years now, and no one has ever shot there. But then they kind of have an old Victorian looking home, and that's actually where we shot one of our shorts that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, my parents were opening up their house for a film shoot, and it happened to be when YouTube was trying to make like their premium subscription content, like YouTube Red. I don't even know if they still do that. But there was a show called Impulse, and they were shooting at our house, and that was like a very big budget show. It was supposed to be one of the like pillar shows for them to get people to subscribe. And there was a cinematographer there named David Green. And I had basically asked when they were shooting in the house, can I just hang out? Right? Like, this is amazing. This is going to be like $1 million episode of some show. I would love to just see what this is like. Because at TMU, all we did was we're our own productions. So I had never seen an actual film set before. And so they came in, all 40 of them. They're like repainting our house. They're changing they're changing so many different things about it. And I'm kind of just hovering, trying not to get in people's way, but I'm hovering. And then I'm trying to get as close to the director and cinematographer's monitor as possible whenever I can. And then the cinematographer, David Green, just asked me, what do you want to do? And at that point, I was very interested in cinematography and directing. Now I'm more just directing, but at the time I was like, I would really love to be a cinematographer and a director. And from that moment on, he was just so nice. He literally just put me under his wing, just brought me. He just basically had a seat for me in front of the monitor whenever I wanted, and he would just tell me what he was doing, how he was doing it. He'd literally call me across the room, tell me which lights are going where. And then he told me, if I really am interested in cinematography and I want to meet other cinematographers, I should go to the American Society of Cinematographers masterclass in LA. And so basically that is just a 5-day program. You have to be in the industry to get in, but it's not like you need to really do an interview or anything. It's kind of like a paid workshop that you go to. And there was just cinematographers from all over the world. There's probably 2 of us from Canada, so many from Europe, Brazil, America, Asia, all these people coming to just learn from big cinematographers in the industry. And at that time, I was still very interested in cinematography, but by the time I got there, I was like, I really just want to be a director that knows how to talk to cinematographers rather than be a cinematographer myself. So I was just there to get as much education as possible. And also I was like, maybe I can find my cinematographer. Like you have the Coen brothers who have like Roger Deakins, right? So many directors like solely use Emmanuel Lubetsky. Like you find your person to work with. And I was like, maybe if I luck out, I'll be able to find my person. And I did on the first day. I I was really stoked. I met Tobias Gavinius the first day of the workshop. He's a cinematographer from Copenhagen, Denmark. And it was kind of like going to camp. You just meet someone and you're just like, okay, I have a feeling we're just going to hang out the whole time. And so, yeah, we spent the whole 5 days together and talking. and he is like very much a great cinematographer out in Copenhagen. He's had some films in Cannes and stuff like that, and I was just like having such a fun time meeting him and learning through him as well. um and so that was kind of just, and then I went back and I just thanked David Green so much for telling me to go and do that, because we learned from like cinematographers like Dante Spinotti, who did Heat, just like, and oh, I'm forgetting his name, Tim, I forget his last name, but he did Drive, which is another movie that I absolutely love. um and yeah, it was just an incredibly educational experience, and showed me um yeah, what it means to be a cinematographer, but also just what it means to be in the industry. There was kind of a panel at the end of the ASC masterclass where um, they just kind of asked, we've told you a bunch of technical stuff, like we visited Panavision, we visited all these places. They were like, let's talk about um, the reality of working in the film industry, what relationships are like. um, a lot of them were divorced, like teaching you a lot about things and like the demand of the industry. And so it was just like an incredibly educational experience, and I ended up walking away with finding my cinematographer that I only work with now on our short film. So yeah, that was, those two experiences in LA were truly amazing for me, and I got a lot out of them, but um still a lot more connections to make, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, and one of my favorite things that I've seen online that you've done, and it's kind of an oldie but a goodie, is your web series Northhood. That I believe you were the director and the main cinematographer on it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I've been watching it the past couple days, just like in preparation for this interview, and I just love how you guys like combine parodies of movies into the plot like so seamlessly. Can you just touch on how you work to like combine those elements into the show and just maybe the process of making that show in general?
totally. I mean, yeah, so I think that was actually the same. No, not the same. Okay, so the summer between first and second year was our failed short with the mustache guy. And then it came to the second summer of university. And during second year university, I had really gotten into single camera shooting. And I was like, okay, now I feel more confident. I'm not going to make the same mistakes that we did last summer. I would really love to make something while we've got our time off. And I had met Taylor, who's the like creator and star of the show, and then his best friend at the time, Abe. Um, they had both done a lot of acting in high school, and Taylor and I were in a comedy troupe together at Ryerson. That's where we met. And we were like, okay, we know a lot of comedians now. Maybe we can make a show featuring a bunch of them. And we were all movie buffs at the time, or had just started to really become movie buffs. And yeah, so that summer we were just like, let's make a season of a web series. I think we were kind of inspired by like Broad City and those types of shows. But we were like, yeah, or maybe our little twist on it could be direct parodies of films. And yeah, that was honestly probably the most educational experience for me. School did a lot, but honestly, like when you do it yourself and when you just have no help whatsoever, you just have to figure things out. And I remember like reading Quentin Tarantino's book, and he said the same thing of just like, why spend $50,000 on film school when you can spend $50,000 on a film? I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that 100%, but I think there's like something to take away from there, you know? Um, but yeah, when it came to Northhood, I mean, it's a very silly show. It's very stupid. I would do a lot of things differently now, of course, but at the time we kind of didn't know what we were doing, but we um, had some vision for it, and we just put in a lot of effort. And so it's like you do get something out of it when you have those two things. I don't, it's definitely not a perfect show by any means, and I'm not sure if I love how it's aged, but because you get a lot more critical about things afterwards. But yeah, when it came to making that show, I think we just talked about either our favorite films or cult films that we thought would be hilarious to make fun of. And it was really just that first season. We thought we progressed a lot with the second season. Honestly, that first one felt like we were just trying to figure things out. But at the end of the day, it was just like you just call favors, you just ask friends. Like we would just drive around, the three of us in my car, pick up everybody, drive everybody around. I think it was just me. We choose some victim from our friend group to run audio every day because no one wanted to do audio, no one wanted to hold the boom pole. And yeah, that was really just a true experiment that I think turned out pretty well for us. But yeah, when it came down to parodying, I mean, like at the end of the day, every director, every artist is taking from something that they know, right? It's like you can't learn art in a vacuum. So yeah, we thought it was fun to just do, honestly, some poorly produced versions of what we loved in contexts where they might not normally be seen. I think what we enjoyed was that like you could just all of a sudden take people out of your story and bring them into this moment, and that's something that's kind of familiar, and then just bring them right back. Like there's a moment where someone takes out a business card and like we go right into the American Psycho business card monologue of Christian Bale. And honestly, I think that even making those parodies was super helpful for me to just understand how people make films in general, because by copying someone, you understand why the shots work together. When you just go and do your own thing, you're kind of just freestyling. But when you're trying to actually copy someone or recreate something, yeah, it gives you a different perspective. And especially when you're in such like a learning process in the film industry, that was just like so fun and honestly just so helpful.
Yeah, and just like a follow up to that, just as now a fan of the show, can we ever expect a season three? Or if not, if you were to make a season three, was there anything you would do differently, having like seen how it's kind of aged today?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing a season three, but Taylor and I have been talking about maybe doing something. We always like every year, every 6 months or so, I'll like watch an episode and I'll go, that was pretty fun. Like that was a good time. But now that I'm making like more short films and stuff, it is hard. Because now my standards are higher. Now I want like to put money towards things to make it what I want it to be. Because like both summers is just a matter of the three of us maybe putting in a couple $100 and we just see what we could do with it. But oh, sorry, what was the second part of the question? Oh, what
If
would I
you
do
ever
different?
were to make a season three, what would you do differently?
That's a really good question. I think for us, we had always rushed the writing process. And even though we love doing improv on set, I think it's like improv only really works if you have a really good base. Uh, and so I think I would take a little bit longer with the writing process. And also now I just know so many more films. So doing the parody aspect of it, I think would be a lot more fun. And maybe we could do a more accurate job of it. Um, because sometimes, as I said, the parodies take you out of it. But I think if we were to make a third season, I would want to use the parodies to actually like bring you more into the film. Like maybe there's like a parody that you don't even realize you're watching, but then like it more transitions more smoothly. But yeah, honestly, I think the writing process, and oh well, the biggest one the biggest one for me would be working with two cameras, because I also edited the whole series, and it was so hard because we were having so much fun. But as I was saying, with like continuity from the very beginning of this chat, um it became a nightmare so many times trying to cut down everything, because we would just roll and do whatever we wanted. We would just be dying of laughter, and then like I'd get to the editing room and I'd be like, we did 7 different jokes here, how am I supposed to intertwine these? Um, so I think it would be more about, yeah, really firming down the script ahead of time, and then yeah, on the day shooting, having two cameras, because then when you have a locked script and then you want to do improv, it's like now you know that you've got everything that you need. And then when you do improv on top, it's like now we're just looking for that extra joke, right? And see what happens on the day. Like, I don't know, with making that show, those were the best moments, is that just whatever we made up on the spot or thought was funny that second. So being able to capture that better, I'm sure there was golden moments that maybe I couldn't quite make work in the edit based on the covers that we got. So yeah, more improv, but more guidelines, kind of a balance of both.
All right, all right. Well, I'm still going to keep my fingers crossed for season 3 because that ending of season 2, a little bit of a cliffhanger. Not going
It
to
really
spoil
did.
it for people watching at home, but yeah, I'm still keeping my mind open to a season 3 potentially, but yeah, we've kind of, we've sort of talked about how you kind of cracked into the industry, your way in. So I was just wondering, for those listening or watching, do you have any tips for aspiring directors of how they can, find their way into the industry?
um, I think for me, it's honestly like, unfortunately, you do have to just start by doing that grind of like, you can't expect at all to make money at the beginning. Like, you truly just need to do it because you like it, because you love it. Even now, it's like I'm not making money on the short films that we'll talk about after this. I'm losing a ton of money, right? I'm investing in myself in those films. So the very beginning, it was just, you need to you need to just go out and do it, because you don't know if you're going to like it. uh like, a lot of people in when you start in university, a lot of people, like, you ask, what do you want, like, who in here wants to be a writer, who in here wants to be a director, and like everybody puts up their hands, like everybody's hands are up. And I think it's because no one has done it yet, and so no one knows if they truly have the drive and really want to do it. And so I think it's so important to just go out, like I said, call a bunch of favors, duct tape a boom pole to your friend's hand so he has to do it. Like, um just start making things to make sure that you love the process at the beginning. um and because, like, maybe you'd like some sort of other version that's not necessarily production or direct filmmaking. Maybe you want to be like an agent, or you want to be involved in the arts but not necessarily like the actual grind of being on set, because it really isn't something that's for everybody. I personally think it's so much fun and like easier than a billion other jobs that people are doing. They're so much more admirable than mine. um but yeah, for me, it was just from the very beginning, just starting to do it with your friends, and also just do some research, just watch movies. For me, I as soon as I realized that I wanted to get into filmmaking, I was doing these 100-day movie film challenges. I think I did about 3 of them between grade 12 to second year university, where I was like, I'm going to watch 100 movies in 100 days and just kind of write a little blurb about them. Um, when you watch movies like that, you don't remember much about them, to be honest. But I think subconsciously you learn a lot, and you also learn what you like about films, even if you can't remember specific things about them. I have a terrible memory with watching movies. That's just a side note. But yeah, for me, it was really just about finding other people that I admired their artistry, or like I said, their comedy, their acting chops. Just do it for fun at the beginning, because it's like, if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. And then after that, um, like the way that I did it is like just started to reach out to like musicians that I really like, musician friends, and I was like, okay, let me try directing some music videos now that I know how to hold a camera, now that I know how to operate it. Let's try that. Try and find people at your level and at your interest that will kind of follow along with you. That's basically what I've done this whole time, is just, there's a lot of people that want to do what you're doing, and that's not a negative thing. That's actually a positive. I think a lot of the time people think we're all in competition with each other, but there is plenty of room for everyone to succeed. And I think the only way that you're going to succeed is just working with those people that inspire you around you. Um, so yeah, for me, it was honestly just about grinding it out, asking friends if I could direct their music videos for free, um, asking them to just pay for lunch on the shoot, and that's all you need. And yeah, just find people that are like-minded with you and start making things with them, because it's like you really can't do it alone. I tried to do that at first, and it just like I didn't find myself moving very quickly. And then as soon as you try and like open yourself up to everybody, and you almost become, I guess, like a little bit more vulnerable as to like what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish, um, then things started to move forward. And like I said, I do not claim at all to be a success in the industry right now whatsoever. I'm making short films right now because I love them, and I'm lucky that I'm working with people that want to continue to work with me. Um, but I mean, aside from what I just said, just be really nice to people. Like that's like if people want to work with you again, that's like the best thing that you could ask for. Because in a time where you're trying to start off, it's like people that want to do you a favor, or people that would just like to work with you, that's all you can ask for. Because right now I can't ask for money. I can ask for maybe grants. I'm applying for grants and stuff like that, but production company's not calling me today and giving me a bunch of money for my next shoot, right? The only way that I can make it happen is the people that I've been working with and that I continue to work with. And so do favors for them, they'll do favors for you. And then if you love making things, you're just going to keep making them, you're going to keep learning, and then you're going to start actually making money off of the thing that you love. And I think that's the only way, for me at least. That's my only path. I don't have many connections in the industry that someone's setting up a meeting with a producer for me. My parents don't know anything about movies whatsoever, so I've never been big into film until university. Never had connections growing up. Still don't really. And yeah, I'm just making these things because I like them, and that's where I started, and that's what I'm still doing. So that's how I've entered the industry, is honestly just enjoying what I'm making and trying to find people that are like-minded.
Awesome. And you could say where your well, I guess you can't say it, where your solo directorial journey really began was in 2021 when you and Ben created Pink Rabbit. Could you just touch on what that was like your directorial debut, like getting behind that director's chair by yourself for the first time?
Yeah, that was honestly like one of the best experiences of my life. So as I said, Ben and I were all talk for a very long time. We just kept saying we're gonna make something. Tried to make that mustache movie, didn't end up working out. Then Ben went to Western for writing. I went to TMU, and when we both finished our university degrees, we were like, okay, we definitely feel a lot more confident about making something now. As I had mentioned, I met Tobias, so I'm like, now I found my cinematographer. Let's do something. And we had Jack, and so this is where Jack comes back into the action. Because I had just heard that he was at Western just killing it in all the plays, and then crazy guy comes back to Toronto after graduating Ivy and decides to go to acting school. So I'm like, okay, this is amazing. I love this guy. So yeah, with Pink Rabbit, it started with a scene study that Ben had written in university, and it was basically about yeah, a young photographer and an older male model, and we kind of developed the script. That was our trickiest script we ever written. Maybe it was because there's a very like slow burn and it's hard to keep the tension. We are also trying to be maybe a little bit too obscure and too mysterious. Like now I would have done a few things differently, but that took a lot of revisions, that script. So we worked on that for a long time. And then finally, when we had the script nailed down, I messaged Tobias. We had been keeping in contact a little bit since the master class, and I just said, hey, would you come to Toronto for the first time? And would you want to shoot this short? And he was super excited. He said yes, which was awesome because then that was like the biggest weight off my back. I'm like, even if I suck at my job, it's going to look beautiful. Um, so we had Jack and we had Tobias, Ben and I, and then uh, I think like another thing of advice that I have is um, when writing a script, I think when you don't have any money, it's super important to always think about location and just for like maybe location first and your actors. Because at the end of the day, even an actor might be able to save a subpar script, like, but if it's a bad actor or if like it, then people aren't going to watch. And so we had just this two-hander. We had Jack, and I needed to find someone who's going to play the older man, which is a very weird role, very eccentric and kind of over the top. And we could not go through ACTRA. We had no money for that. So I just scoured the internet and just looked for any non-union casting that I could, just watched everybody's demo reel. Finally found David John Phillips. And I was like, honestly, I watched his reel and I was like, it's either him or we have to write another script because I just could not find anybody. And luckily he said yes. So all of these things are now coming into place. I kicked my sister and her partner out of their apartment. They lived in a kind of cool apartment at King and Yonge that was just surrounded by buildings. It's almost a little bit dystopian because it's like looking out the window, it's just layers of all of these buildings. And so we knew we wanted to shoot there. And it just became a matter of putting together a small team. And then, because we were only in this tiny apartment, putting together a small team and then actually getting there. Like you had mentioned, it was kind of like the first time that I actually got to direct. And doing the actors rehearsals, I started to feel what it was like to just be responsible for that. And so I was starting to get my beak wet a little bit there, like starting to understand what it was about. And then when actually on set, it was really just, it just shows you, as I said before, that you just can't do it alone. It shows you how important having people that you trust are, because it was just unbelievable. Like Jack and David were just such good actors. They came so prepared that they brought elements to the script that Ben and I had never even discussed. Even like physicality and they created so many moments that I love in the movie that were not even my intention. And so like being a director, it is one thing of having to like create your vision, but it's also like you want to create a space that's open enough for others to add, because it's like they're better actors than I am. Tobias is a better cinematographer than I am, right? Like they're going to be able to teach me during this process. And so that's when I kind of realized that directing is about kind of like this flow of knowledge. It's like you're trying to keep your vision alive, but part of your vision is letting these people shine in the best way that they can, and provide you with things that you couldn't even think of. And yeah, being there with Tobias, it was just like we would just finish each other's sentences. It was like a shot would be done, and I'd be like, "Oh, I think that we need to pull back a little bit for," and then he would just be like, "Yeah, on that last line of the shot, yeah, okay, for sure." And honestly, I have this memory burnt into my head, of there's a moment in the climax of the film. Oops, sorry, moment in the climax of the film, and I knew I wanted David to get somewhere. This is something that, like, again, like you want to allow everyone to do or to contribute their own things, but there's some things that you just have to know about your script and about the final edit. Um, and I knew David needed to get somewhere emotionally for it to really hit at the end of the movie. And we were like slowly building there. Each take, I was giving him like a little bit more feedback. And honestly, this is my first time really working with an actor in this context. So it was a really good learning experience and it was so much fun. But there was a moment where I had given David something to think about and like a little bit of like a push. And then the next take, I'm like watching the director's monitor, and to see it come to life in that moment exactly how you imagined it to be was really just like one of the best moments of my life. I was like, wow, so this is what it's like. This is what it feels like to work on the production design with someone, have them kill it. Now you have a beautiful space that you're filming in, talking with your cinematographer about all the shots, the lensing, the angles, and then having like that framed up perfectly. And then your actor killing it and bringing that like emotional high that you want in that moment. And it was like seeing all those things come together. I was like, okay, I don't think I can do anything else ever again because I love this so much. I was like, this is it. This is why I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, that must have been so cool to, give an older actor, someone probably with like a ton of experience, that advice, and to see that like just happen in front of you off of what you said. Like that must have just felt amazing.
Yeah, honestly, and like I said, he had brought so much to it, and I did honestly feel a little bit, I couldn't help but feel a little inferior, right? Exactly what you're saying. This is a seasoned older actor, and like I'm a 23-year-old guy that's kicked my sister out of her apartment to film in here, you know? But at the end of the day, like he liked the script and we had done rehearsals. So I think we did start to trust each other. Like it is just so important to build trust, or else yeah, people will just check out or not want to give their best. Um, and so, yeah, I think the fact that that's also something that I guess I would recommend to people is to, you have those actors rehearsals, because, and like, I hope I can say shit, but know your shit. Like, like research your script your own way. Your actor will research it his or her their own way. And when you're talking about it, as long as you're able to communicate back and forth, then you'll build this trust. And it's like, doesn't matter how much experience that person has, doesn't, whether it's a ton or a little bit, when you have trust, then like the work flows. So I think hopefully we had built that trust. I wasn't fully sure, but then I found out later that David does like us and he had a great time. So um but yeah, in that moment, it was a little bit of like, of course, imposter syndrome and feeling strange, but you have to believe that you know what you want out of your own project in those moments. And so yeah, it was definitely a little bit strange for me, but ultimately felt great, and we did get there. So yeah.
Yeah, and you've also done work with music, whether that be like in the studio when they're recording or just creating music videos in general. And I was just wondering, how different is it working with a musician or a singer or rapper versus working with an actor, like instruction wise or just straight directing wise?
Yeah. I think on music videos, I find it to be, it's a little bit easier because at the end of the day, when I work with a musician, like my first question is like, what is the image you're trying to give off, right? Like I'm not trying to construct an image for someone. I'm trying to embellish or help them create the vision that they want. So I can have like, I'll write a treatment, I'll have a bunch of ideas for a music video, but at the end of the day, it's about how that person wants to present themselves rather than, and sometimes you know what, they are trying to be a character, so in that case like that feels a little bit more similar to like fictional narrative to me. But for the most part, I find it a little bit simpler because they know who they are and they're telling you who they want to appear as. So you're able to just give them little pushes here and there, as an outside perspective, being like, hey, you're not quite coming across as how you described you want to. Here's how I think that we can get there. But yeah, music videos, I'm slowly getting out of music videos. I think like doing them a little bit less, just because I'm realizing how much I'm just in love with narrative, and I don't get quite the same like from music videos. Uh, but yeah, it is like really great creative expression, and it does help me a lot watching and thinking about music videos for more like trippy visuals in my own films that I do like to include. But yeah, it's I'd say it's a little bit easier when it comes to the direction, because you're just trying to direct someone to be themselves versus someone to be a completely different character.
Yeah. And just jumping back to Pink Rabbit, shortly after I think you filmed it, that's when COVID kind of started. So I wanted to know just how the pandemic impacted your career and work and just like what it's been like since ending that, since
Yeah.
COVID quote unquote ended.
Yeah. Um, yeah, honestly, yeah, it really did suck. Because we took a big break from Pink Rabbit to our newest shorts. And yeah, so it was, I mean, so it impacted it immediately because we had finished Pink Rabbit and we had our premiere set for March 17th, 2020. And everything in Ontario shut down on March 15th. So that was a devastating blow to us because we had just worked so hard on this film. Um, we were so excited about it, and we had sold like 150 tickets or so, and had like a bar rented out afterwards. And we just wanted to show everybody what we had done. Because I do feel like bringing something all the way to the finish line is part of the process. Like you can't just shoot something, you can't just edit something, you can't like you need to go from the inception of the idea to having people see it. Like I think that's the only way that you can learn the most. And so not getting a chance to see any feedback, to have any feedback from anybody was like devastating. And then COVID started, and here was like obviously quite bad, as you know, lockdowns for so long. And I honestly just, after working so hard on something and not being able to showcase it, uh, I just, I honestly got like pretty depressed, like being home, not being able to work on anything. Work completely stopped for me because I'm a freelance videographer and editor. Later in COVID, it started to pick up when people started to do like Zoom events and stuff like that. So that's when I started to get more editing work. But at the beginning, it was just radio silence. I just finished something I was really proud of and couldn't show anybody. And so I felt just an insane lack of creativity for a long time, for probably like 2 years. And I was like, wow, this, I had, as I mentioned, the best moment of my life, maybe being on set and having that like revelation of what I want to do with my life, to then going, wow, I don't know if I have any ideas. I don't know if I'll ever make a short film as good as that again. I don't know if I'll be able to. I don't know if anyone like will work with me again once we're able to. Um, and I think Ben was kind of feeling the same lack of motivation. It just hit us both so hard. Honestly, it took the wind right out of our sails. Might have been one thing if we had had the premiere and got great feedback and then COVID started, but to just work on this thing and just feel like you were just throwing it in the garbage, um, really hurt. And then like festivals weren't operating the same. It was all just very discouraging. And it honestly just took a long time, to feel creative again. And then once I did, it felt so good. And I knew I would always get there, but it was very discouraging and very sad. And also just like logistically speaking, I'm self-funding these films. So I just wasn't able to say like book a flight for Tobias, knowing that maybe uh like the airports would be closed and maybe there'd be a lockdown again. Like it just kept being so like unpredictable that I was like, I just can't even invest in something realistically. And so that was super discouraging. But then once COVID ended, whatever we want to consider ending, once things got back to normal generally and I started to work again, and I honestly think I just started going to the movies again. Um, and like I was watching a lot of movies alone, but that was more just to stay sane. It wasn't even like, it didn't even feel that great. Like, well, I remember one week during COVID, I watched The Deer Hunter, Schindler's List, and Lawrence of Arabia in like 3 or 4 days. I'm like, those are all just the most insanely long movies. Um, so I was in a movie depression. And yeah, but when I started to get work again, started to work on music videos again, started just honestly working with people again, I was like, okay, I want to do this. I started talking to Tobias again, and then Ben and I were like starting to feel motivated. And that's what led us to make the two short films we made in November, The Whipping Boy and Colored Emotions. And yeah, it really took like a lot of work to get out of that, uh like whatever the equivalent of writer's block is for a director, or just feeling motivated in general. Just getting out of that depression took a while, but once I got out, once I started seeing people again, working with people again, I was starting to feel it. And then when we had that first draft of the script for Whipping Boy, I was like, and all the ideas start to percolate, and you start to get so excited about shots and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm back. I made it back. We made it through the war, and now we're here, you know?
Yeah, no, and you mentioned the Whipping Boy and Colored Emotions, and both of those have been made under your artist collective, Grin. And so I just wanted you to touch on a bit of like what exactly Grin is, and also then on to the Whipping Boy and Colored Emotions and just the process of making those.
Yeah, definitely. So Grin is basically, Ben and I called ourselves Grin from probably before we even, like, we made, I guess I didn't touch on them, but we made like two little tiny shorts back in high school, but other people were shooting them for us. It wasn't really like a full short film. Some of it didn't even have any sound. Um, but Ben and I called ourselves Grin because we were like, okay, let's think of a little production name to work under. And we were like, what do we want to do with movies, and like what do we want to convey, what do we want people to feel? um and I was like, I loved the Coen brothers so much, I still do, but they were like my number one influence. And I was like, I love dark comedy so much. A grin can kind of mean many things, right? Like a grin can mean something happy, a grin can be something creepy, it can be very uncomfortable. I was thinking about like a clown has a giant grin on his face, and he's someone that works at he or she or they, sorry, is someone that works at a birthday party to hopefully bring children joy, but then we have all these horror movies and phobias about clowns. So initially we were like, okay, a grin can kind of mean a lot of things and make people feel a lot of different ways. So we were like, that is what we want to do with our movies. So that's where the initial idea of Grin came from. And then when Tobias joined, I mean, Grin is honestly just like the people that I hope to work with on movies every single time from here on out. The people that are dedicated to the ideas that Ben and I come up with, and that would like to work with us, and that we hope to all come up together. Um, as I said, it's just like you want to find people like-minded that you all believe in each other. And so we're not like a production company. We're not making money or taking on other productions from other people at this time. But we're really just a group of friends that will continue to build these stories together, and that these stories are a priority for, I guess. So Tobias joined as a part of Grin when he shot Pink Rabbit. We were just like, we'll never do another short without Tobias here. Um, we'll find a way to fly him from Copenhagen, and he can stay in my house whenever he needs to. And then my friend Sam is an amazing composer, and he did all the original music for Pink Rabbit and Whipping Boy. Colored Emotions doesn't have a soundtrack, but he did all of the original score and composition for that. And so I was like, after having that experience with him on Pink Rabbit, I was really like, wow, okay, it is just about developing these relationships and learning how to talk with everybody. So it was so cool to be like, okay, now we have a composer that I like love working with, and he is just like a genius. He's so good. And I just feel so lucky that he's excited to work on these projects too. Um, and then Jack, we want Jack to be in all of our movies because Jack is freaking amazing. Like Jack is so good and so versatile. Um, Maybe there'll be a film in the future that it just doesn't make sense for Jack, or maybe he'll be on some big blockbuster and can't squeeze us into his schedule. But Jack is super into working with us now, not even just as an actor, but in helping with us with producing stuff. I I always wanted Jack to be like my Owen Wilson, like Wes Anderson, just from day one having Owen Wilson and all of his stuff, or just like you see like so many directors just they have their core team that they just use over and over again, because it's like when someone's good, they can just transform. um and so we just use Jack for everything because he's fantastic. And now we write things to either see him try, or we write things because we know he would like kill it. And then finally, the most recent piece of Grin is our producer Natasha. And Natasha, it just came from me starting to produce Whipping Boy and realizing I was way over my head. And I was going to start drowning very soon in all of the work that needed to be done. And I put out a call on Facebook looking for a producer to help me. And Natasha had recently come to Canada from India and was looking for work. And she just, again, like liked the story and wanted, and then we started to talk and started to work, and we just got a really good flow of and a really good appreciation for each other. Because I do some of the producing more on I guess the like organizing the crew and schedule and that kind of stuff, and Natasha takes care of like everything else and makes filmmaking 1,000 times more fun. um and after making that film, after making Whipping Boy, she was excited, and now she just wants to be a part of whatever we do next. So that is Grin, and we're just, yeah, we just call ourselves like an entertainment collective. We're just literally a collection of friends that are making movies together, and we just slapped a logo on it, and, and that's where we are.
Yeah, and a big night for Grin was on June 9th, your premiere night at the Royal Theatre in Toronto. What was that like? I saw on Instagram you guys had, I think, 350 people showed up to watch Pink Rabbit, The Whipping Boy, and Colored Emotions. Like, what was that like, having that many people there to like see your work? It must have felt like night and day from how you felt when Pink Rabbit didn't get that premiere.
Yeah, so that was obviously like such a long time coming, reaching out to all these people like 3 years later, who bought tickets to Pink Rabbit, because I always told everyone I can refund you or I will honor your ticket, because I was like, we're going to have a premiere at some point. So having that premiere was just like, at first it was like the worst feeling because I was so scared. Myself, Ben, and Jack were just panicking. We because sitting on all this work for so long and not showing anyone just really had an effect. It really just built up the anticipation, right? Been talking to people so long about it. Now you finally need to just put your money where your mouth is. Just let it play on the screen. You can't talk through it. No excuses. People are just going to watch a movie, right? So at first I was just so scared, and I was also scared that we weren't going to sell enough tickets. um and then it honestly just, it could not have gone better. It was, yeah, we sold out the theater. um of course, all last minute. Like the week before, I was like, oh my god, ticket sales are so low, this is not going to be good. And it's like, you can always rely on your friends to buy the ticket the day before. So yeah, that was just like insane. That felt so good. We were so appreciative of just like everyone that I've ever met was there. Just, and I just felt such an unbelievable amount of support. Um, I was so scared before getting to the theater that day and the week prior. But when I got there and I saw just like everybody that I know, I was like, wow, this is just like, I'm beyond grateful at that point. Just like, it felt so good just to be supported in that way, to just like have people show up was just amazing. And then yeah, actually being in the theater, that's why I kind of said that thing about going from inception to showing it. It's like I learned so much about the movies when watching them with people. Because like when you show like two people in a room something, or it's like when, like the difference between like watching a comedy with like your mom in your living room versus watching a comedy with like a 400-person theater packed like at Cineplex or whatever. It's like you end up laughing way harder. You end up finding moments that like you didn't necessarily think were funny, or different things like that. It's like you have such a different experience in a theater. And for me, it was always about, because I've never shown anyone these films, I've actually never known if my message is translating properly, or if my moments of tension are tense, if my moments of relief and comedy are funny, right? It's like I think they are because I'm making them a certain way and catering to the way that I like things. But I'm like, who knows? Maybe everyone's gonna watch this and to go, that wasn't funny and that wasn't scary, you know? So being in that theater and hearing people laugh, hearing people hold their breath, feeling people like whisper to each other in an uncomfortable moment, like um, it was just very gratifying. Um, and it also taught me like some things that I thought necessarily might work, maybe they didn't work exactly as I thought, but it was like a different outcome that I'm not necessarily upset by. It was just like people take things differently. And so finally getting there after 3 years and having everybody see it and then just getting to talk to everybody afterwards, in the moment I was just completely overwhelmed, um almost in a way that like I couldn't fully appreciate it, it was just like talking to 1,000 people. um but a couple days after, when I was able to digest that night, I was just like, wow, I really feel um yeah, just immense support. And I do feel like if I make another movie, people are going to come out and see it, and that's kind of all you really want. Even if it's half of those people want to come back and watch that film again, um it was just so rewarding. And yeah, just so important, I think, to be able to fully complete and package something and finish it, because you learn so much. Like I said, you learn even when you're showing it, even when you're showing the final product. So it was like, yeah, maybe that is now the best night of my life. I'm sure there will be some better nights, but for now, that was just something where, yeah, I've never experienced that kind of support and love. And especially, as I said, after going into that like 2 year depression of not thinking that I'll ever make something again, to make a couple more and to show them for people to enjoy them was just, yeah, I couldn't ask for anything more.
And I guess with the success of that night, what future projects is Grin working on, or just yourself in general?
Yeah, we're definitely talking about making a couple more shorts very early next year. So we want to, right now with Whipping Boy, that's going through the festival circuit. So we're submitting that. We're hoping to make some more industry connections to get it into some more festivals, because that's a whole other nightmare, honestly. But um, yeah, as far as future projects go, now I do feel like that fuel that I always wanted after making Pink Rabbit. I don't feel like I'm in this uh creative depression. I feel like, especially after that premiere night, I'm just like, okay, I just want to make something again. I want to show people more. We keep learning so much every time we work together. So we're working on a more emotional two-hander, between a young man and a grandmother with dementia. And so it's kind of tackling Alzheimer's. That's a story that's very close to our writer, Ben. And so honestly, like, this is the fun about making short films, is that you don't need to be like super dedicated to one style of filmmaking when you're just making shorts. It's like I'm just ready to experiment with a lot of different things. um, I miss in Pink Rabbit just doing something with two people and making it, trying to have like a very poignant message. So I'm looking forward to doing that and having like a little bit more of an emotional side to that. um, it's going to be, of course, it's going to have to be a little bit twisted as well, because that's just the way that we like things. But and then I also, being in that theater and showing Colored Emotions, which was a film that we kind of made in like 72 hours, and it was just way more comedic than our other work. uh, Doing that really, and hearing the laughter in the theater, I was like, I would really love to make something even more comedic than what we've made. So I have a little bit of an idea that kind of involves like a 60-year-old man that's a part of like a startup of a bunch of like late 20 somethings. There's probably like, he's like one of six people at this startup and feels completely outside. And they go on a cottage trip together and things start to unfold in some precarious ways. So I won't say much more than that, but those are two things that we're looking to film early next year and just like keep going, because I have no idea what the success of Pink Rabbit is going to be at the sorry of Whipping Boy at these festivals. So I'm just ready to make more and keep sending it out. Just got to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So yeah, a couple more. We're gonna keep pumping them out. We're energized now.
And do you think you'll ever dip your toes into the water of a feature length film, perhaps?
I would absolutely love to. So yeah, basically the process for us right now is um the only way we can make a feature at this point in time is Telefilm has a film fund called Talent to Watch. And so that's for young directors in Canada. It's like $150,000 to make your first feature, which goes very quickly. But yeah, so what we're trying to do, maybe we'll be able to apply once the Whipping Boy gets into some festivals. But how it works basically is if you get on a short list of their like top tier festivals, if you get into one of them, now you're eligible. So Ben and I are working on our feature script, and it's actually Colored Emotions is a little bit of a proof of concept for the feature. It's kind of a character piece for it. So basically Colored Emotions, the feature film is about a young man at on a date, and he goes to the washroom and he comes back and he can't find his table. And it ends up becoming this basically fever anxiety dream of him trying to find this table because he doesn't want to be alone in life or even for a second. So yeah, it ends up being this fever dream where these kind of different rooms open up, and we explore different moments and different aspects of anxiety, but in a very comedic and kind of surreal way. So that's the feature that we're looking to make, and we're hoping that we can apply through Telefilm, get that in the next couple of years, and then move to make that feature. But until someone's going to trust me with a feature, I'm just going to prove to them that I can make 1,000 shorts and they can be pretty good. So that maybe something will come our way soon enough. But yeah, would
Well,
love
yeah.
to make a feature.
Yeah, well, clearly you're doing a great job with the short film so far. So I think those opportunities should be coming very soon. But I did want to get more to, some advice for the people listening here. You've kind of touched on how important it is to, build a network and just find other talented people within your industry. And besides that, is there a biggest piece of advice you would have for young directors or artists in general?
I think what I've realized, because yeah, I mean, like the biggest advice for me is like to find those like-minded people and just keep trying. But for me, I think, and I only kind of really realized this uh, after Pink Rabbit, and during the process of these new shorts, is that like share all the time with people. Like if you have an idea for a film, don't just like keep it all secret to yourself and then like make the film all secret and then edit it all secretly and just show people. It's like if you have an idea and you share it with people, they might give you their own insight into that idea, and you might end up having like so many more things. You might make this story so much deeper than you initially thought. When we first had the script for The Whipping Boy, we sent it to so many people, and to see how people felt about it, almost like a focus group type thing, right? At the end of the day, you're going to have to make your own decisions and you're going to have to stand by them, but you can at least get an idea of how people will react. And we got so much good feedback from that. It developed the script so much. And then in the editing process, like with Pink Rabbit, there's some things that I would do so differently because I just edited it all myself and just kept it a secret as like my little thing that I was so excited to show people. Didn't want to give anything away, but it's like at this point in your career, it's like you just need to learn as much as you can, as fast as you can. And how people react to your work is like the ultimate way of knowing how you're doing and how things are moving. So I edited Whipping Boy and sent it to so many people and got so much good feedback. Same with Colored Emotions. Colored Emotions, because the way that I showed it to people, I ended up completely changing the beginning of the edit using completely different takes of the actors, because I realized that I knew something that happened in the script later in the film that affected my way of editing it off the beginning. and it actually was completely deterring people from the point of the film. And so I'm like, I would have never known any of this if I was too afraid to share. um and yeah, like I think it really just is about um being open to people, like offering your hand to someone else as well, they'll offer it back. um when it comes to actually wanting to make a short film, my my number one advice is always location first. If you have no money, choose a location that, like, you know, you have access to, that you know your friends grandparents cottage is like super creepy and weird, or like, you know what I mean, like find your budget where you don't have it and then write around that. Because when you can just write anything, maybe sometimes that's a little bit overwhelming. But if you're like, okay, I have this that I can work with, let's write it all around that. It's like you narrow in right away, and you're actually like, I find constraints at this point are actually very helpful. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I feel like I've said a lot about just working with people, and that's the main thing, is that like you can't do this alone, and the more people that trust you, the better. And when you're on set, it's like, for other directors that are working, it's like it's your job to make sure people, I mean, like you hear about directors being complete a-holes, and but it's like those guys have already made it. Those guys have $1 billion from the movie studio, and like they can get more. But it's like when you're starting off, it's like the only way that you can do something is make people have a good time so that they come back and want to have a good time again. um Also, if no one's having a good time on your set, you're probably not having a good time, and then what's the point? So just make sure that you're enjoying it. It's stressful, definitely, and it definitely is overwhelming. But yeah, make sure everybody's having a good time, and then you will as well. And then only good work comes from that. I think like a positive work environment will always create good work, especially if you keep recreating that environment with the new knowledge you have. Like what you make can only go up.
Awesome. And that actually brings us to my favorite part of the show, the 5-question rapid fire round. So,
Oh my
Victor, are
gosh.
you ready for that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, yes. I'm
Okay.
nervous.
All right. Question number 1. Director who inspires you the most?
The Coen brothers. Is
All
this
right.
rapid fire? Like, do I not get to explain? Is it
Oh,
just
no,
one
you
answer?
can explain. Yeah, you can
Oh,
explain too.
okay. Okay. Yeah. I have a lot of directors that I love now, but Coen brothers from day one, they're what made me want to be a director and an editor. I remember seeing Blood Simple um, when I was in high school, and there was one shot where someone's going to press to hit the voicemail on the phone. Someone's going to press the voicemail button, and it transitions to a hand pressing into the seat cushion of a car that's covered in blood. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's what it means to plan something like that far in advance, to actually have like vision shot by shot and to edit your own things. Cause I know that they edit all their own movies. I was like, that blew my mind. Seeing that, I was like, that's what it means to have like a full vision of something. And I also just, I think my twisted sense of humor and love for really, really dark concepts with comedic relief probably came from the Coen brothers. But yeah, I could list 1,000 other directors that I'm really inspired by.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And then number 2 is a little tougher, probably. Favorite movie?
um
Jack had to give a top 3 for this, so I will accept a top 3.
oh my God, I don't even know if I can give a top three. I How about I give can I, can I give three movies in like the last 5 years that I really love?
Yeah, yeah, that's all good too.
um I mean, I have some posters in my, like Blade Runner right behind me is definitely a top one. um yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite movie of all time. um but three movies that I think have like really blown my mind and like inspired me recently. would definitely be Triangle of Sadness by Ruben Östlund. I absolutely loved that movie. Um, Killing of a Sacred Deer by Yorgos Lanthimos. Yorgos Lanthimos might be, he's another one that's like really like, one of my favorite directors. And Killing of a Sacred Deer might actually be like in my top 3 movies. So that's both. Um, and then another one, Worst Person in the World. That's another movie that I saw recently that just like completely blew my mind. Just like a full 10 out of 10 movie. You just get all the feels and you talk about it afterwards. Um, Maybe I can think of 3 of my favorite movies. Um, okay, I do think Godfather 2 is up there. I just think that is just like one of the most epic, perfect movies of all time. Um, Maybe I can't do it. Big Lebowski,
Oh
I think
man.
is I think is up there for me. I think that's my most watched movie, so I think I'm gonna have to put it up there. Um, yeah, I know this list might change tomorrow, but I'll pretend like it is. So Godfather 2, Big Lebowski, and then I think hmm, honestly, Apocalypse Now is one of the best movies I've ever seen. And I also got to see it at Cinesphere in IMAX, and that was an incredible experience. I might take that one back, but let's just go with whatever I've said for now.
All right, all right. And then my next one here is favorite movie genre to direct and create.
Oh, definitely, definitely dark comedy. Um, I think I think like so many movies now are becoming like mixed genres. Um, and for me, dark comedy, it just gives you such an ability to toy with people and create moments. You can create these great moments of suspense, and then having like these moments of comedy that provide relief, I think is like the most fun, because it's like you're literally, as you're writing the script and as you're directing the actors, you're like trying to line up all of these chess pieces in a certain way. And for me, that's the most rewarding. That, like, as I said, hearing people hold their breath in the theater and then let it go with a laugh. That's why I think dark comedy is my favorite. Very dark though.
Okay,
Very dark
okay.
comedy.
And then the fourth question here, obviously you listed a lot of really good movies, but are there any guilty pleasure movies you have? Like, they're not the best movie, but like you just enjoy watching them.
Hmm.
Like for me, it's
I mean,
probably Space Jam.
okay, yeah. Um, I don't know, I think there's a lot of movies from like my childhood that I'll like just that I'm like any sort of like kind of family channel Disney movie that you watch back in the day, that it's just like, this is terrible, but it just brings you like comfort. Like, oh my God. Like there also just so many. The thing is, but you know how I talked to you about those movie challenges?
Mhm.
Before that, all I had ever watched was really just like Adam Sandler movies. And he had some great ones, do not, but I mean, like, I also had like You Don't Mess with the Zohan on DVD, and that's not necessarily something that you want.
That movie
Um,
goes hard. I love that movie.
okay, you do. Okay, maybe it's like movies like those that are my guilty pleasure. I also just absolutely love watching um like me and my friends just like to get together and just laugh at movies. Like I personally think that like the new like Venom is just not, it's not it. But I love getting together and like watching those, because there's something about um I think it's really important to also watch bad movies, because you understand what's not working, right? So I don't know, there's a lot of movies that I'll like to just watch to laugh at, but I think, yeah, guilty pleasures, stuff that I actually like truly enjoy, would be those early Family Channel or like early Adam Sandler movies. Yeah.
Okay. And are you a fan of the Marvel movies though? I know those are kind of like a hot button topic with like Martin Scorsese saying they're not cinema and all that. What's your stance on that? I just want to throw that in there. That's not the fifth question or anything, but
I personally I'm a little exhausted by them at this point. I did enjoy some of them, but I honestly just found it overwhelming to follow and keep up. And then for me, it really was, it's like it's fun if you're really into the universe and those characters, but for me, I'm not obsessed with those characters. So what ends up happening for me is I feel like I'm watching the same movie every time. They do feel very, very similar. So unless you're deeply connected to the story and know all these cameos and little things that are happening, it really does feel like the same movie. When Iron Man first came out, like I do love the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. And when Iron Man first came out so long ago, when he was like witty and sarcastic and hilarious, I was like, that's a really interesting take on a superhero. But then when every superhero ended up being quick-witted, funny, cheeky, I was like, now I'm a little bit bored because I thought that was different. And now it's just like they're all carbon copies of each other. And this is just my own opinion. I think what Marvel movies do for cinema is amazing in general to get people to go to the theater. But personally, I much prefer, like, I just did Barbenheimer 2 days ago. And seeing the theater filled with like, it looked like it was a costume party. It looked like it was some giant film premiere, but it was just one of the 10 screenings that day for Barbie. Everyone's showing up in pink. I had just come from Oppenheimer, which was also a line around the block to get in. And I'm like, this is what I really, really appreciate about movies, is that like these one-off movies can bring this audience. And I'm just excited to see that not with a Marvel movie personally. Because I do think that they are getting a little bit tired. And I loved the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. Like, those are my favorite. Okay, maybe that's my guilty pleasure. Spider-Man 3.
that's yeah.
That's my guilty pleasure because I still think that slaps. I love that movie. But I know people like meme it all the time. But yeah, Marvel for me, it's just, it really does feel not genuine anymore. It feels like a money grab. And I think, I don't know. And now I'm just seeing some really bad superhero stuff coming out. Like, I just saw the trailer for Blue Beetle. And that to me, just like, it doesn't even look like they're trying anymore. So that's just my personal opinion. I definitely don't look down on anyone for watching them. And like, I think it's obviously a sweet experience being able to, like I said, the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, when they were crossing all the universes and stuff, like, I was loving that. I was having a great time watching that. So if you're super into the story, then I can see how these would be fun to watch. But for me, I find it way too overwhelming to catch up at this point. So I've kind of just like put up my hands and been like, okay, I just don't get it. I can't go back and watch all of them, I don't think. So I've just tapped myself out.
Yeah, I love your shout out of Spider-Man 3 though. That movie gets way too much hate.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie to watch. I remember seeing that when I was in like grade 1 or 2 and I was hooked.
Yeah, I know.
I thought it was the best thing at that time.
I know, me too. I got a t-shirt from it or something. Like, I loved it at the time. And I still watch back and I'm like, people are too hard, just like Nickelback, people love to hate.
Exactly. That Nickelback take is amazing too because I like Nickelback. I think they're a good
Yeah.
band.
They have bangers, man. There's no
Yeah,
reason. There's no reason to hate on them.
exactly. All right, I'm gonna get to question 5 here, and for this one, I'm actually gonna jump back to North Hood. My new favorite show. What was your favorite parody of a movie you did in North Hood? Because there's quite a few that I saw in there through my watching, but I just want to know what your personal favorite was, or just one that you found the most funny filming or something.
I think by far the funnest one for me was the Seven parody. Because that one is probably the closest to what I was referring to with season 3, if we were to do one. is that like that one integrated itself so much into the actual script rather than just like Family Guy style jumping out of the moment to a flashback and then coming back in. That one was the most like integrated, and that one I had the most fun and I think experience at the time actually trying to recreate a parody. So that was so much fun because yeah, that is a really good movie too. That's in the top 10 for me, 7. But yeah, being able to recreate that, and I thought that Aben Taylor's acting performances were actually really on par and really funny. So that was by far my favorite because I think that was definitely our most believable parody. Some of the other ones were just like cheap throwaways, but that was actually like took some location scouting, like took some stuff to put together. So that was one that was the most fun for me.
Yeah, it was cool because I know on the YouTube channel there you have like the parody that you guys do, and then like after you'll have the actual scene. It was cool because I was watching the Seven parody back again. And then like I saw the part where I forget. I think it was Abe was looking at the camera, like pointing the gun, and then he's like looking away, and then looking back, and then looking away, all sad. And I was like, oh, why is he doing that? And because I hadn't seen Seven in a while, and then I watched the clip back, and I was like, oh my god, that's exactly what Brad Pitt does, but he's just doing it in like such a satirical way. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you appreciated that because yeah, sometimes you don't like you're saying it takes like a parody to like because they're doing it so well in the realistic moment that like when you watch it in a like paradoxical sense, you're like, oh, that is a little bit strange that that is the performance, but that yeah, that's what made it so much fun. I think is little moments like that. Like we were dying at that. We were like, just keep going, just keep just the like over and over again. It was yeah, so much fun.
And I also loved the Lord of the Rings love. I think in the season 1 finale where he jumps into the lake
Uh,
with his Hamlet poster. That was
yeah.
incredible.
I actually almost forgot about that one. Yeah, that was a really fun one too. And I think another one that we laughed so hard at when we were making was the platoon one, just because it's so random. It's another moment that it's just like becomes so over the top. That yeah, combining Survivor and Platoon was really fun.
No, that's awesome. Well, Victor, that brings us to the end of this conversation today. We've covered everything from, your early work, your upbringing in Mississauga, to, the big show you're doing now and everything. Is there anything you want people to know at home? Anything we missed at all?
Honestly, I've never done an interview before, so that's what I want you to know. No, I had such a good time, man. I think like honestly doing an interview like this, like I don't trap my friends and make them talk about this stuff with me all the time. So doing an interview like this, it just yeah makes me want to make more art and do more things. So I love talking movies and stuff. So this was really just a pleasure, and I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to talking to you again in the future. All of you watching at home, you're the best for making it this far. This is episode 4, the final episode of We Got Next with Anthony Fava. For now, we might bring it back. We're going to take a little bit of a hiatus. But yeah, best for making it this far. And as always, peace.